folks, welcome back to One.Stop.Over. For those of you who are new here, my name's Tom. I'm a photographer based out of New Jersey. And for those of you who have been following along on Substack, I really appreciate your engagement. Thank you so much. It means the world to me that you're following along this journey with me. For those of you new here, if you feel the urge, please, I'd appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, and follow. And you can do that with the links contained in the show notes for this video. So the topic for today's recording is revisiting your archive and how that can benefit you. And so I have talked about this previously on Substack, but I thought it was important to revisit it as recently I had been going back through my archive trying to find a couple of particular photos of an area I'd photographed. And while I was doing so, I kind of churned up some old images that I hadn't seen for a while, and it got me thinking about where that work falls into what I'm doing right now. And it also kind of recreated a bit of a spark in some of the things that I'd like to continue pursuing. For those of you who are listening to this, you'll be able to see the images in the Substack article that is associated with the podcast download. For those of you watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the images because I'll be showing those to you on the screen. But I thought it was really useful tool to go back and do this, because what I did find was that some of the old images I had taken 3, 4, 5 years ago that I may have dismissed, I had kind of sort of found a new purpose for, and they fell into some of the other bodies of work that I was creating right now. One of the things I heard several years ago when looking back at sort of your past actions, not just creatively but in life, was that we should look back but not stare. And I think this is certainly the case when we come to looking at our photography again. It gives you the ability to kind of reflect on where you were and also where you're going. The other added benefit as well is I think it reinforces that you have been making progress. I know, like so many other creatives out there, I often struggle with imposter syndrome, and I'll think I've taken a bunch of fantastic pictures, and then when I come back to look at them, I don't feel positive about them. One of the things I've really enjoyed about film is it kind of separates me from the work a lot more, and so I'm able to look at the work more objectively. And what that has actually helped me do is not be as hard on myself, because I've actually found some of the work I've made has really resonated with me, even months and years after I've taken it. The other thing this has really helped me do is remember certain locations that I'd forgotten about, and it's kind of like a good reminder to go back and say, hey, I need to go back and photograph this specific location some more, or I need to revisit it at a different time of day or a different time of year to kind of capture it in a different scenario. And every time I do this, I've found that some of the images I've taken over the years have kind of I breathe new life into them. Maybe it's even the way that I look at a old photograph and then process it in Lightroom differently than I originally had a couple of years ago. And I'd say the final thing that this really helps me do, and I think it can help you do also, is often we're in the mindset that we have to be creating work for some kind of project. And if you just go out and take the images and let this archive build up and then go back and revisit the work at a later date, you'll often find themes and trends in your work that you didn't realize were occurring at the time that you've taken them. And I've heard this phrase said several times before. We shoot what we need, and we might not necessarily know that at the time we're doing it. This was certainly the case for me when I was producing the work that ended up becoming my New York zine, which ultimately was about human connection, and this was something I was really struggling with post-COVID. And so I was, I guess subconsciously drawn to making images of these particular scenarios, and this then created the body of work that enabled me to create the zine. So going back and looking at your work in this way can really help uncover things you didn't realize you were doing at the past, and you may have already created a project without even knowing it. For those familiar with my Substack written pieces and audio recordings, you'll be aware that I like to also highlight two Substackers each week as well, as far as articles and writings and imagery that has resonated with me. The two Substack writers I'd like to highlight this week are Ali O'Keefe. First of all, she wrote a really magnificent piece around why she made the decision to maintain her quote-unquote day job while pursuing her creative career as well, and what this has enabled her to do. I think it's really something that resonates with a lot of us who, have a regular quote-unquote 9 to 5 and do and follow our creative passions on the side. There's often this nagging feeling that you should kind of give everything else up so that you can become 100% dedicated to your creative pursuits, and if you're not doing that, you can't really call yourself either a photographer or a painter or a writer. Ali's article does a great job of dispelling that myth, and it's something that really resonated with me because I know over the years I've struggled with this myself. The other article that I read was from Roman Fox. Now, if you know Roman, he is well known on Instagram and YouTube for his photography content, and he's recently been putting work out on Substack, which I've really been enjoying. His article was focused around a series of things that he does not photograph, and I think it's always interesting to read other photographers' perspectives on this sort of unspoken boundary that we create for ourselves, things that we're either uncomfortable doing or things that we will say, hey, no, this is not something I'm going to, a situation or scenario I'm going to photograph. Roman's article was really enlightening. This is definitely something that I thought was an interesting read, and I think it's always valuable to get the perspective of other photographers and creatives when it comes to their boundaries and how they practice their medium. Finally, I'd like to thank all of you for following along and taking the time out of your day to listen or watch this today, regardless of which platform you're doing so, on Substack, YouTube, or via a podcast. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support. You can continue to support by following, subscribing, and liking on whichever platform you're watching this. And in addition, you can also purchase the zine that I talked about earlier on. And I also have a buy me a coffee link whereby you can support my ever-growing film habit if you wish to do so. So thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you all again soon, and have a great day.